Have you ever crossed paths with someone and felt like the entire world paused for just a second? As if the noise around you softened, time slowed, and in that fleeting moment, your soul leaned forward in recognition? It wasn't about attraction. It wasn't about logic. It was something quieter, something deeper, like a knowing that bypassed your mind and settled straight into your chest. There was no thunder, no lightning, just stillness, just presence, just a sense that something significant had just begun. This is how the universe speaks, not through grand declarations or loud signs, but through whispers, subtle shifts, gentle nudges, moments that feel strangely meaningful even though nothing grand seems to be happening. Carl Jung understood this language of the soul. He called it synchronicity, the moment when your inner world aligns with outer events in a way that defies probability and demands attention. These aren't coincidences, they're invitations, signals from something greater than you, asking you to wake up, pay attention, and feel. You don't always know when the universe is about to change your life. It rarely announces itself. In fact, the most important encounters of your life often begin quietly. You meet someone, and there's no immediate spark, no dramatic music, no cinematic moment. But something in you shifts, something deep, something wordless. You can't explain it, but you feel it. Your thoughts slow down, your body relaxes, the usual mental chatter falls away, and in that calm, you simply know. You've met someone who matters. The signs don't always come with clarity. They don't scream through megaphones. They arrive like rain tapping against your window at night, gentle but persistent, and they stay with you. Long after the moment passes, you find yourself thinking about them. You replay the conversation in your head, not because it was special in words, but because it stirred something in you. You feel different, grounded, awakened, as if a door you didn't know existed had just been cracked open. We've been taught to expect love and connection to come with intensity, fireworks, butterflies, overwhelming emotion. But when the universe wants you to meet someone, it rarely uses drama. Instead, it uses resonance, familiarity, that subtle pull in your chest that says, I don't know why, but this matters. That's the whisper. That's how it begins. The first time you feel it, you might question yourself. You might tell yourself it's just your imagination. You'll look for logical reasons to dismiss it. But the feeling stays. It lingers. It grows. Because what you felt wasn't infatuation. It was alignment. A moment when the universe said yes, and your soul heard it. This is not about destiny in the romanticized sense. It's about energetic recognition. You're not meeting a stranger. You're meeting a mirror, a messenger, someone who has been silently walking toward you, just as you've been walking toward them. You didn't see them coming, but your soul did. It always knew. You don't fall for their face. You fall into their energy, into the feeling of being known without having to speak, into the ease of simply being. And in that ease, you start to remember parts of yourself you forgot. That's the gift of real connection. It's not always exciting. Sometimes it's just peaceful. And that peace is louder than passion ever was. The world teaches us to chase love that burns bright and fast. But the universe sends us love that heals, love that aligns, love that unfolds. The people who are meant for you don't come to complete you. They come to reflect you, to remind you of who you are, to stand beside you as you remember your way back home to yourself. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What he meant was that the people you meet are often reflections of the parts of yourself you've yet to integrate. When you're finally ready to face your fears, your wounds, your patterns, the universe responds. It sends someone who activates that next layer of growth, not to fix you, not to save you, but to awaken you. And when this person arrives, you don't need to force anything. You don't need to impress them. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to be. Because that's what alignment feels like. It doesn't require effort. It simply is. This is why the universe doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. When you are ready, truly ready, everything becomes clearer. You begin to notice the feeling beneath the surface. The moment you meet them, your intuition says, pay attention. Not in fear, but in calm awareness. It tells you this is different. This is sacred. This is real. It's not love at first sight. It's truth at first presence. A recognition that bypasses the rational mind. A subtle inner nod that says, I've waited for this. Not out of desperation, but out of resonance, out of readiness. The energy between you doesn't scream. It hums, it vibrates, it aligns. And in this alignment, you don't lose yourself. You don't disappear. You become more of who you already are. That's how you know it's real. You don't have to perform. You don't have to chase. You just have to receive. And that, for most of us, is the hardest thing to do: to receive love without conditions, to accept presence without resistance, to trust a connection that doesn't ask us to abandon ourselves. So the next time you meet someone and something in you shifts, listen. If the moment feels quiet but powerful, if your thoughts stop racing and your heart feels full without explanation, if their energy feels like stillness, not stimulation, that's your sign. That's your moment. The universe doesn't work by coincidence. It works by alignment. And when it whispers, it's not because the message is weak. It's because the message is sacred. Only those who are ready can hear it. Only those who have done the inner work can recognize it. And only those who are willing to stay present can receive what that moment has to offer. Don't wait for love that screams. Open your heart to the love that whispers. It may not look like what you imagined, but it will feel like truth. And in that truth, you won't question your worth. You won't question your timing. You won't question if you're ready. You'll just know. Because when the universe wants you to meet someone, it doesn't make a scene. It creates stillness. It silences the noise. It slows the world down just long enough for your soul to hear what your mind cannot. And in that quiet space, something new begins. Something written. Something real. There comes a time when the things you once called coincidence no longer feel accidental. When a thought of someone crosses your mind, and within moments they appear in your messages. When a name repeats itself over and over again through strangers' lips, song lyrics, or headlines you weren't even looking for. When you're standing in a place you've never been before and suddenly find them there, like the universe gently placed you both in the same frame at the same moment. At first, you try to rationalize it. Your logical mind reaches for explanations, calls it coincidence, a glitch, a trick of timing. But deep within, something else stirs, a quiet recognition, a knowing that what just happened was more than luck, that maybe, just maybe, the universe is speaking to you in a language beyond reason. That language is synchronicity, and it does not waste its breath on accidents. Carl Jung first gave name to this phenomenon, defining synchronicity as the meaningful coincidence of two or more events that are not causally related, yet seem connected in a deeply personal way. Unlike cause and effect, which relies on linear reasoning, synchronicity operates through resonance. It connects your internal state with an external event in a way that defies probability, yet feels profoundly intentional. It is as if the universe is holding up a mirror, not just to your thoughts, but to your soul. These moments are not always loud. Sometimes it's a sudden encounter. Sometimes it's a song playing at the exact second you needed its message. Sometimes it's a feeling that you should turn left instead of right and finding someone you hadn't seen in years. The synchronicity lies not in the event itself, but in the timing, in the feeling, in the unmistakable sense that this was meant to happen exactly as it did. That's how the soul speaks. It doesn't use logic. It uses alignment. When you begin to experience synchronicities often, it's not because the world has changed. It's because you have. You've begun to wake up. You've started paying attention to things you used to dismiss. Your awareness has shifted from the surface of things to the depth beneath them. You're no longer sleepwalking through life, chasing validation, avoiding pain, or staying stuck in patterns that numb you. You're becoming conscious. And as you align more with your truth, the universe aligns more with you. That's the hidden beauty of synchronicity. It doesn't appear to those who are chasing love out of desperation or clinging to people for comfort. It arrives when you are attuned to something deeper, when your energy begins to shift from need to presence, from attachment to awareness, when you stop begging the world to make you feel whole and begin to remember that you already are. That is when the signs start to appear. That is when the universe speaks in ways you cannot ignore. You might see repeating numbers, not once, but often, at moments that make you pause. You might dream of someone and wake up to a message from them. You might walk into a bookstore and the exact phrase you've been thinking about is written on the cover of a book placed right in front of you. These moments are not coincidences. They are echoes, reflections of your internal frequency mirrored in the outer world, and they usually center around one thing: a person. Not just any person, but someone who makes you feel something you can't name. Someone who feels strangely familiar, as if you've known them in another time or another life. As if your meeting is not the beginning, but a continuation of a story that's been unfolding silently for years. You don't understand it. You don't have to, because what you feel is not a thought, it's a pull, a gravitational energy that says there's something here. Pay attention. When you experience synchronicities with another person, it often means they are connected to your evolution. They are here to trigger something sacred: a lesson, a mirror, a message, or a transformation. And the more aligned you become with yourself, the more they show up. Not because you need them, but because you're finally ready for what their presence will awaken in you. The universe does not waste divine timing on relationships built from fear. It reserves synchronicity for soul-level encounters. Encounters that shift your path, that ask more of you, that remind you of the parts of yourself you've hidden for too long. And here's what most people miss: synchronicity is not always pleasant. Sometimes it leads you into joy, sometimes into discomfort, because its purpose is not to entertain you. Its purpose is to evolve you. And people who arrive through synchronicity often feel like they were always supposed to be there, like they slipped through the cracks of time to meet you in this exact moment. You think about them, and they call. You doubt yourself, and they say exactly what you needed to hear. You wonder about a feeling and find the answer through them, as if they've been sent to carry a piece of your clarity. It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to, because the soul doesn't require proof. It requires presence. And when you start to notice synchronicities, not just with a person, but in the unfolding of your own life, you realize the universe has been trying to get your attention for a long time. Through every delay, through every closed door, through every intuition you ignored, it has been guiding you toward alignment, toward a version of you that doesn't need constant validation to trust what you feel, that doesn't need to explain to others what your heart already understands. That version of you is beginning to emerge. And the synchronicities, they are simply the signs along the road saying, yes, keep going this way. Sometimes the person you're connected to will also feel it. They'll mention the same dream, or they'll say they felt your energy before they met you. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll be confused by it, unaware, unavailable. But that doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It means they may not be ready, and your growth is not dependent on their awareness. The message can still come through. The reflection can still transform you, because ultimately, synchronicity is not about romance. It's about awakening. You don't always end up with the person the universe sends through synchronicity. Sometimes they arrive to ignite your healing, to activate your intuition, to bring a chapter of your life into sharp focus so you can finally release it. Sometimes they are not the destination, but the catalyst, the earthquake that shakes your soul so the foundation can be rebuilt with truth. This is why you must pay attention. The signs are not entertainment, they are instructions. The repetition is not a glitch, it's a reminder. You are being guided, and the more you ignore it, the louder it gets, until you can no longer pretend it's coincidence, until the feeling in your chest becomes impossible to quiet, until your soul says this is real. This matters. Listen. Jung understood that when the unconscious begins to rise into awareness, life begins to respond with symbols, with patterns, with meaningful encounters. It becomes mythic, archetypal. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. You no longer look outside for answers. You look within. And from that place of alignment, everything begins to echo you. Every sign becomes a map. Every encounter becomes a message. Every moment becomes alive with meaning. So the next time you think of someone and they appear, the next time a lyric stirs your heart like it was written just for you, the next time you feel the pull to go somewhere unfamiliar and find something or someone looking for, pause, breathe, listen. The universe is speaking. And it is not speaking to your mind. It is speaking to your soul through symbols, through energy, through alignment. This is not magic. This is truth. You are not crazy. You are awake. And the signs were always there. You're just finally ready to see them. Falling for someone often feels like magic. The way they enter your life without warning, the way their voice sounds like something you've heard before in a dream, the way their presence feels like warmth in a cold room. But if you look closely beneath the surface of that feeling, you might realize something else. It's not just them that you're falling for, it's who you become in their presence. It's what they awaken in you. Not the person, but the part of you that comes alive when they are near. That is not coincidence. That is revelation. Carl Jung understood this. He called it projection, one of the most misunderstood and yet powerful forces in human psychology. Projection is not about fantasy, it's about reflection. When we meet someone and feel an intense emotional reaction that we can't logically explain, it's often because they are reflecting something from within us that we have not yet faced or claimed. They are not just another person, they are a mirror. And what they reveal is rarely simple. Often it is both beautiful and unsettling at once. When you are drawn to someone deeply, suddenly, intensely, it may be because they embody a part of you that you have lost touch with. Perhaps you admire their confidence because you have always questioned your own. Perhaps you are captivated by their emotional availability because your inner world has been shut down for years. Perhaps you feel safe with them because you have never known what it feels like to rest in someone else's presence without hiding. What you see in them is what you need to see in you. But it works both ways. Projection is not always about longing. Sometimes it's about pain. You may find yourself triggered by their silence because it reminds you of a time when you were abandoned. You may feel threatened by their independence because it mirrors the part of you that fears being left behind. You may resent how calm they are under pressure because you were never allowed to fall apart. In this way, they don't just reflect your desires, they reflect your wounds. And that's why the connection feels so intense. It's not just romance, it's revelation. You are not only seeing them, you are seeing yourself. And that self may be one you've hidden for a long time. The version of you that never had a safe space to exist. The version that is still holding old grief. The version that never learned how to ask for what she needs without shame. Their presence becomes a doorway, a mirror, a sacred confrontation. It shakes the walls you built around your heart and says, look, this is what's inside. Are you ready to face it? Real connections are not easy. They are not about perfect compatibility or effortless peace. They are about truth. They show you the places in yourself that still need love. They reflect your wholeness and your fragmentation. They bring to light the parts of your soul that are ready to be seen. And that is why they are so rare. Because most people are not ready to see themselves. Most people run from mirrors that don't flatter them. They chase people who keep their illusions alive. But when the universe sends someone meant for your evolution, they will not flatter you, they will awaken you. And awakening is messy. It doesn't follow a script. It doesn't feel like a fairy tale. It feels like standing in front of a truth so personal and so precise that you cannot hide anymore. You find yourself thinking differently, feeling more deeply, questioning everything you thought you knew about love and self and connection. Not because they told you to, but because their presence demands it. Because through them, you are remembering the part of you that is still waiting to be claimed. You might think this is love, and in many ways it is. But it is not the kind of love the world prepares you for. It's not the kind that makes you lose yourself. It's the kind that shows you how much of yourself you've never met. The kind that holds up a mirror and says, this is who you really are. And sometimes that reflection is breathtaking. Other times it's painful. But it is always honest. That's what soul-level connections are. They are not here to entertain your ego. They are here to dissolve it. And here's what most people miss. The person you are seeing is not the source of your feelings. They are the activator, the catalyst, the one whose energy collided with yours at a moment when your soul was ready to remember itself. You were not just falling for them. You were falling into the unclaimed parts of yourself, into your shadow, into your light, into your longing, into your healing. And that is why it feels so intense, because it is not just about them. It is about you. You don't see this at first. In the beginning, you think it's about their smile, their energy, their words. But as time passes, you start to notice something else, that everything you feel around them is really about what they represent. The freedom you crave, the stability you never had, the passion you buried, the softness you forgot. They are not your savior. They are your reminder. And sometimes that reminder comes to stay. Sometimes it leaves. Either way, it changes you. And that change is permanent. Because once you've seen yourself through someone else's eyes, once you've felt what it's like to be mirrored at the level of soul, you cannot go back. You cannot return to shallow connections. You cannot pretend not to know what real presence feels like. You cannot settle for love that doesn't ask you to grow. That's the price of awakening. You lose your tolerance for what doesn't align. Carl Jung wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves. He also believed that the people we meet are often carriers of our projections, not because they are wrong or deceptive, but because our unconscious uses them as screens on which to display our hidden truths. And the more unconscious we are, the more likely we are to fall in love with a fantasy instead of a person. But as we awaken, as we become aware of our projections, we start to see clearly. We start to separate what is theirs and what is ours. We stop confusing admiration with dependency. We stop mistaking comfort for compatibility. And in that clarity, we grow. So the next time you feel deeply drawn to someone, pause. Look beyond their appearance. Look beyond their charm. Ask yourself what part of you feels activated in their presence. What memory do they stir? What fear do they awaken? What dream do they remind you of? What truth do they reflect? Because in answering those questions, you are not just seeing them, you are seeing yourself. And that is the point. The purpose of every soul level connection is not to complete you, it is to reveal you, not to save you, but to return you to yourself, not to provide a fantasy, but to dissolve the illusion that you were ever incomplete to begin with. They come not to give you your worth, but to show you where you abandoned it. They are not the destination. They are the reflection that points you back toward the most important path you will ever walk, the one within. There's a truth most people avoid because it doesn't fit into the fairy tales we've been told. When someone truly aligned with your soul enters your life, it doesn't always feel like peace. Sometimes it feels like chaos. Sometimes it feels like everything inside you is unraveling. Not because they're wrong for you, but because their presence brings you closer to the truth you've spent your life avoiding. And truth, when it first arrives, rarely feels comfortable. It feels like fire. It burns through illusions. It forces you to look at yourself with eyes that can no longer turn away. When a connection is real, when it touches something deep inside you that has long been asleep, it doesn't just awaken love, it awakens everything: the joy, the fear, the hope, the grief, the longing, the shame, the dreams you buried, the walls you built, the stories you told yourself to survive. All of it comes up. And it can be overwhelming. Because love that comes from the soul does not simply soothe you, it transforms you. And transformation often starts with pain. That pain is not punishment. It's not a sign that the connection is wrong. It's a sign that it's real, that it's touching something sacred, that it's inviting you to break open, not break down. There's a difference. Breaking down is losing yourself. Breaking open is finding what's been hidden inside you all along. And sometimes it takes another soul to hold up a mirror so powerful that you can no longer hide from yourself. Their presence becomes a catalyst, not by what they do, but by what they activate. You may find yourself asking, why does it hurt so much to care? Why does their silence feel so loud? Why does your heart feel exposed in a way it never has before? And the answer is simple. Because your soul has recognized something ancient, something real, something that doesn't just touch your heart. It touches your shadow. And the shadow doesn't like to be touched. It doesn't like to be seen. It has learned to protect you by hiding. But love, real love, doesn't leave the shadow untouched. It goes straight to the places most people avoid. Carl Jung said, we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's what this connection is doing. It's making your darkness conscious. It's showing you the fears you've masked with confidence, the insecurity you've hidden behind independence, the longing you've pretended didn't exist. And in that confrontation, it hurts. It has to. Because growth always hurts when you're stretching into a version of yourself you've never been allowed to be. You may feel like you're losing control. You may find yourself obsessing, doubting, crying without reason, remembering wounds you thought had already healed. But all of this is not regression, it's emergence. The pain is not your enemy, it's your messenger. It's telling you where your healing begins. It's showing you what still needs love, what still needs your presence, what still needs to be released. And it's hard because we've been taught that love should feel good all the time, that if it's real, it should be easy. But the truth is that love, when it's real, will stretch you. It will ask you to show up in ways you never have before, not because it wants to break you, but because it wants to expand you. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, unprepared. And that's okay, because healing doesn't happen when you're ready. It happens when you're willing to feel, willing to stay, willing to listen to what the pain is trying to say. Maybe it's saying you've never truly let yourself be loved without fear. Maybe it's saying you've been carrying wounds from your childhood into every connection since. Maybe it's saying you still believe you have to earn love by sacrificing yourself. Whatever it's saying, don't ignore it. Don't numb it. Don't run from it. Sit with it. Let it speak, because pain, when honored, becomes wisdom. And here's the beautiful part. This person who awakened all of this in you may not even understand the depth of their impact. They may be unaware of how deeply their presence has stirred your soul. But that doesn't diminish the significance of the connection. Some souls come not to stay, but to awaken, to shake the dust off your heart, to remind you of the sacred work you came here to do, to hold a mirror so clear that for the first time you can see yourself without distortion. You may want to label them, to define the connection, to know where it's going. But the truth is, some soul encounters don't follow a linear path. They don't make sense to the mind. They exist outside of logic. And their purpose is not always relationship. Their purpose is evolution. They arrive to elevate you, to crack you open, to guide you inward. And sometimes they leave, not because it wasn't real, but because the lesson was complete, because the awakening had occurred, because your soul was ready to walk forward on its own. You may grieve them. You may ache for their presence, but don't confuse the pain of their absence with the absence of meaning. Just because it didn't last doesn't mean it didn't matter. The depth of the connection is not measured by its duration, but by its impact. Did it wake you up? Did it teach you something you'll never forget? Did it bring you closer to your truth? If the answer is yes, then honor it, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts, because that pain is sacred. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of depth. It means you allowed yourself to feel, to open, to trust, to be transformed. And not everyone is brave enough to do that. Most people guard their hearts with armor so thick that nothing ever reaches them. But you let someone in, and they touched a place inside you that hadn't felt light in a long time. That's not a failure. That's a beginning. So breathe through the ache. Let the tears fall, but don't close your heart. Don't let the pain turn into walls. Let it become wisdom. Let it become softness. Let it become strength. Because one day you'll look back and realize that the pain you're feeling now was the doorway to a new version of you, the one who doesn't hide, the one who doesn't settle, the one who knows how to stand in her truth, even when it trembles. Pain is not the enemy. It is the portal, the pathway to depth, the signal that something important has been touched. And while it may feel like everything is falling apart, what's actually happening is that the false is being stripped away. What's breaking is the shell that kept your light hidden. What's dissolving is the illusion that you needed to be perfect to be loved. And what's emerging is you, raw, real, radiant. So let it hurt, but let it heal too. Trust the process, trust the timing, trust that your soul knows exactly what it's doing, and that every tear, every ache, every uncomfortable truth is not taking you further from love. It's taking you deeper into it, into the kind of love that doesn't just soothe your wounds, but transforms them. The kind of love that begins within. There is a storm that lives inside every soul, not the kind that levels buildings or causes chaos in the streets, but the kind that quietly disrupts your inner world. It whispers in your moments of stillness, hides in your reactions, disguises itself as strength when it's really fear, control, avoidance, or old pain. Carl Jung called this storm the shadow the part of ourselves we deny, suppress, and reject. Not because we are weak, but because we were never taught how to hold it. Because the world taught us to perform light and hide the darkness. But love, the kind that is destined, the kind that is real, does not let your shadow sleep forever. It wakes it up. And when it does, you will not always understand what's happening. You might meet someone and suddenly feel things you haven't felt in years. Not just joy or excitement, but fear, anxiety, neediness, jealousy, anger, confusion. You may wonder why you feel so out of control, why their presence brings out parts of you you thought you had outgrown. And the answer is simple. The shadow has been touched, not because they hurt you, but because their energy illuminated what was already inside you. This is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough. Destined love walks straight past your defenses. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock gently. It opens doors you didn't know were closed and exposes the parts of you that are still waiting to be loved. This kind of love does not settle for surface level. It dives deep. It wants all of you, not just the version you show the world, but the version that trembles, the version that doubts, the version that once begged to be chosen. And in that exposure, you begin to feel raw, seen, shaken. Most of us think we are ready for love until it shows us who we really are, until it reflects back not just our beauty, but our brokenness, until we hear ourselves speak with the voice of old wounds, until we find ourselves acting out patterns we thought we had healed. And in those moments, we panic. We think something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. You are simply being shown what still needs attention, what still needs forgiveness, what still needs your presence. When your shadow awakens, it often disguises itself as a problem in the relationship. You might think they are too distant or too close, too safe or too overwhelming. You might blame them for how you feel. But the truth is, they have simply triggered what was dormant. And that is not an accident. That is the sacred work of soul connection. It comes not to comfort, but to cleanse, to call forward the parts of you that long to be integrated. Integration is the process of becoming whole, not by cutting away what hurts, but by loving what hurts enough to hold it without fear. And when someone loves you through your shadow, when they see you not as broken, but as unfolding, they become more than a partner. They become a guide, a mirror, a sacred ally in the healing you didn't know you needed. But even if they don't stay, even if they are not ready to walk that path with you, the work remains. The invitation stands. Will you finally meet yourself? Because once the shadow has been awakened, it does not go back to sleep. It will continue to call for your attention through dreams, through reactions, through moments that catch you off guard. It will remind you that healing is not about pretending to be perfect. It's about being honest about where you are, what you feel, what you fear, and being brave enough to face it. Jung believed that what we do not make conscious will control us, that the shadow is not evil. It is simply unacknowledged. And the longer we refuse to see it, the more we project it onto others. We call people toxic when really they are just reflecting our pain. We chase unavailable people because we are still unavailable to ourselves. We fear abandonment because we keep abandoning our own truth. But when you are willing to see your shadow, not as a weakness, but as a wounded child asking for your love, everything begins to change. This is what destined love does. It shines a light so bright that the shadow has nowhere left to hide. And when that happens, the real work begins. The work of returning to yourself, of peeling back the layers, of meeting the younger you who still believes they are unworthy, the version of you who thinks love must be earned, the part of you that flinches when someone gets too close. And in meeting those parts, not with judgment, but with compassion, you begin to heal. It won't happen all at once. Healing is not a switch. It's a spiral, a process, a sacred unfolding. Some days you will feel powerful. Other days you will question everything. But through it all, the shadow will guide you. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to reveal you, to bring you back to the truth of who you are beneath the performance, beneath the survival strategies, beneath the fear. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are human, and you are ready. Some people come into your life just to awaken the shadow. Their presence activates every old wound, every old fear. And it hurts, but it also heals, because you begin to see where your work is. You begin to understand that love is not about avoiding triggers. It is about learning from them, sitting with them, breathing through them, holding space for yourself in the moments you want to run. And in doing so, you become more whole, more real, more alive. This is what love is meant to do. Not make you comfortable, but make you conscious. Not protect your ego, but free your soul. Not save you from yourself, but bring you home to yourself. And that home is not a place of perfection. It is a place of honesty, where every part of you is allowed to exist, where nothing is hidden, where even your fear is met with kindness, where your shame is no longer stronger than your truth. So when love awakens your shadow, don't run, don't numb, don't pretend it's not there. Sit with it, learn its language, ask it what it needs, let it speak, because within the shadow lives your power, your voice, your freedom. And when you integrate it, when you embrace the part of you you were taught to fear, you become unstoppable. You become whole. This is the true purpose of destined love. Not to fix you, not to rescue you, but to mirror the sacred work your soul came here to do. And when you accept that, even the pain becomes sacred. Even the tears become prayers. Even the triggers become teachers. And the love that once felt like fire becomes a light that guides you home. There comes a moment in your journey where you realize that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some people arrive like lightning, fierce and unforgettable. Others slip in like the quiet hum of a melody you can't explain, but somehow know by heart. And while their timing may feel perfect, while their presence may shift something deep within you, that doesn't always mean they are meant to remain by your side. This truth is hard to accept, especially when the connection feels profound. Especially when your soul recognizes something in them it's never felt before. But the depth of a connection is not defined by its permanence. Sometimes the most important souls are the ones who only stay for a chapter, not the whole story. We live in a culture that glorifies forever. Movies, books, and songs all teach us to equate love with longevity. If something ends, we assume it failed. If someone leaves, we assume something was wrong. But what if the opposite is true? What if some people are meant to find us precisely when they do, not to complete our story, but to awaken a piece of it? What if their leaving isn't the loss, but the fulfillment of their role in your growth? Carl Jung understood that the psyche is not linear, that healing and awakening happen in spirals, and that the soul calls in the experiences it needs at exactly the right moment to evolve. Some people are not meant to accompany you into your future. They are meant to help you reclaim your past, to stir something in you that was long buried, to offer a glimpse of what is possible before gently stepping back so you can continue your journey alone. This does not make their presence any less real. It does not mean the connection was imagined. It means that their energy arrived to serve a purpose that has now been fulfilled. The pain of their absence may feel sharp, especially when the memories are still fresh, especially when your heart still aches for the conversations that once flowed effortlessly, the laughter that echoed like music, the silence that felt safe. But what you must remember is that their role was not to stay. It was to shift you. And they did. Whether they knew it or not, whether they intended to or not, they were a mirror, a messenger, a turning point. And that in itself is sacred. Sometimes we confuse longevity with meaning. We believe that for something to matter, it must last. But the soul does not measure time in months or years. It measures transformation. It asks only one question of every connection. Did this change you? Did this reveal a part of you that you hadn't yet met? Did this person awaken something you were ready to remember? If the answer is yes, then the connection was real. Even if it ended. Even if they walked away. Even if the goodbye came too soon. Because the purpose of some relationships is not to build a future together, but to reroute the direction of your life, to pull you out of autopilot, to burn away your illusions, to challenge your beliefs about love, worthiness, and connection. And once that work is done, the bond dissolves. Not in failure, but in fulfillment. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the contact of two personalities being like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Not all reactions are meant to last forever. Some are meant to ignite, to shake, to break open, and then to pass. And as painful as that passing might be, it is not without value. It is not without beauty. It is not without purpose. The hardest part is accepting that closure may not come in words. It may not come in explanations or apologies. Sometimes the only closure you will get is the one you give yourself. By recognizing that the connection mattered, that it was real, that it served you, that it helped you become more of who you are now, and that its ending is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of life's rhythm. Not all doors are meant to stay open. Some are meant to be walked through. Some are meant to be closed with reverence, with gratitude, with peace. You may find yourself revisiting the memories, wondering what you could have said differently, wondering what would have happened if timing had been better, if one of you had healed sooner, if life had aligned in another way. These thoughts are normal, but don't let them anchor you to the past. Use them as reminders of your capacity to love, to feel, to grow. Use them as fuel to deepen your connection to yourself. Because every soul who touches you leaves behind something: a lesson, a spark, a shadow, a gift, and it is your choice what you do with it. The truth is, not all loves are meant to become partnerships. Some are meant to become poems, songs, prayers. Some are meant to teach you what love is not, so you can recognize what it truly is. Some are meant to break your heart open so the light can finally get in. And while the world may tell you to move on quickly, to forget, to fill the space with distractions, your soul knows better. Your soul knows that grief is part of the honoring, that remembering is part of the healing, that letting go is not erasure, it is transformation. You do not have to resent someone to release them. You do not have to demonize them to walk away. You can let go with love, with respect, with the quiet understanding that they were never yours to keep, that their role was not to walk beside you forever, but to help you take the next step on your own. And in that release, there is power, there is clarity, there is freedom. Jung believed that the most powerful connections are the ones that lead us deeper into ourselves, that the soul uses relationship as a mirror for inner work, and that sometimes the person who feels like a soulmate is actually a soul catalyst. They awaken you not because they stay, but because they change you. They leave you not because they failed, but because their purpose was fulfilled. So honor the ones who came and left, not with bitterness, but with reverence. Speak their name with grace. Remember the lessons with gratitude, and trust that their departure was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where you carry their imprint not as a wound, but as wisdom. The beauty of this kind of connection is that it doesn't fade. It evolves. It becomes part of your fabric, part of your becoming. And in quiet moments, when you feel something stir in your chest, a soft memory or a subtle ache, let it remind you that you were brave enough to love deeply, brave enough to let someone in, brave enough to feel everything, and brave enough to release what was never meant to stay. Because not all destined encounters are forever, but all of them are sacred. All of them leave fingerprints on your soul. All of them shape the person you are becoming. And that is not something to grieve. That is something to celebrate. There is a silent law woven into the fabric of the universe, a principle that is not spoken aloud yet governs the timing of the people who enter our lives. This law does not respond to pleading, it does not bend to impatience, and it does not arrive on demand. It moves with a rhythm that cannot be manipulated, only aligned with. And it says this: the universe does not send you who you want when you're desperate. It sends you who you're ready for when you've become aligned with your own truth. It's tempting to think that longing alone should be enough, that wanting love, needing closeness, or praying late at night for someone to understand us is enough to open the door. But energy does not lie. The universe does not respond to words. It responds to alignment. It responds to the state of your being, not the desperation in your mind. You do not attract what you beg for. You attract what you are ready to hold. You do not receive the mirror when you're still hiding from your own reflection. You receive the mirror when you're willing to sit in the stillness and face what you've become without turning away. This is why you may have met people who reflected your wounds more than your worth. People who confused you, challenged your boundaries, triggered old fears, or mirrored the chaos you carried within. These connections were not punishments. They were lessons. They were invitations from life itself, asking you to look inward, to become more conscious of what you've been running from, what you've been seeking in others that you haven't yet found in yourself. Carl Jung taught that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. What he meant was simple. The people who come into our lives reflect the parts of ourselves we have not yet faced. When we are still seeking external validation, we attract those who withhold it. When we are still afraid of abandonment, we attract those who leave. When we are still disconnected from our power, we attract those who control. This is not because we are unworthy. It is because the universe is showing us where our healing must begin. The energy of desperation is not magnetic to love. It is magnetic to illusion. It does not attract presence. It attracts confusion. And the more we seek love as a way to escape ourselves, the more we invite people who remind us how lost we truly are. This is why you may find yourself stuck in patterns, meeting the same person in different bodies, experiencing the same pain in different relationships, because the pattern is not outside of you, it lives inside you. And it will continue until you stop asking, when will I meet the right person, and start asking, what parts of me have I abandoned? What parts of me have I judged, rejected, or hidden away? What parts of me am I asking someone else to rescue? Only when you turn inward, when you begin to listen to the silence beneath the longing, will things begin to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but subtly. You will begin to feel a kind of peace that does not come from being loved by someone else, but from choosing to love yourself in the places you once ignored. You will stop chasing attention and start practicing presence. You will stop begging for closure and start honoring your boundaries. You will stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing your own path. And in that shift, in that inner grounding, the universe takes notice. It does not respond with fireworks. It responds with resonance, a quiet clarity, a sense of recognition. You no longer feel the need to perform or prove yourself. You no longer question your worth in someone else's presence. You no longer crave a savior because you've become your own. This is when aligned people begin to appear. People who do not demand your silence. People who do not ask you to shrink. People who do not mirror your wounds but hold space for your healing. And they don't arrive because you desperately wanted them. They arrive because you finally became ready. Readiness is not perfection. Readiness is self-honesty. It's the ability to sit with discomfort instead of avoiding it. It's the willingness to be vulnerable without collapsing into need. It's the capacity to receive love without trading your authenticity for approval. When you are ready, the people who enter your life feel different. They don't fill a void. They meet you in your wholeness. They don't create chaos. They bring clarity. They don't rescue you from yourself. They walk beside you as you continue becoming. This is what Jung hinted at when he spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your true self, distinct yet connected. The more you individuate, the more your relationships shift. You stop attracting people who only reflect your trauma. You begin attracting people who align with your values, your truth, your direction. And sometimes, those people are not romantic partners. Sometimes they are friends, mentors, soul companions. The universe sends who you need, not always who you expected. Because the soul is not concerned with your fantasies. It is concerned with your becoming. There is something profoundly liberating in this, because it means you no longer have to chase. You no longer have to perform, to beg, to contort yourself into the shape of someone else's desire. You simply have to become yourself fully, authentically, and then allow life to respond. It also means that when someone enters your life and stirs your soul, you no longer cling. You observe, you listen, you feel. And if they stay, you welcome them. If they leave, you release them. Because your peace no longer depends on their presence. Your worth no longer depends on their choice. You are not seeking completion. You are living in alignment. This doesn't mean you stop longing. It doesn't mean you never feel lonely. It means you don't abandon yourself when those feelings arise. You sit with them. You breathe through them. You hold space for the human parts of you while staying anchored in your wholeness. And that balance, that inner congruence, is what opens the door for something real to find you. Desperation chases love and finds confusion. Readiness attracts love and finds resonance. Desperation begs to be seen. Readiness already sees itself. Desperation collapses in the presence of connection. Readiness expands in the presence of reflection. And so the universe waits, not as punishment, but as precision. It waits for you to return to yourself. It waits for you to drop the masks. It waits for you to choose truth over approval, growth over comfort, presence over performance. And then, when your energy aligns, it sends the people who match that frequency. So the next time you find yourself asking, why hasn't love come yet? Pause, turn inward. Ask yourself, what within me is still seeking to be filled from the outside? Ask where you are still outsourcing your worth. Ask what still needs healing, attention, forgiveness, and then offer it to yourself, not as a strategy to attract someone else, but as a devotion to your own soul. Because the love you are ready to receive is equal to the love you are willing to give yourself. And when the person finally arrives, you will know. Not because your heart races with anxiety, but because your soul exhales. Not because you feel addicted to their presence, but because you feel safe to be fully present. Not because they complete you, but because they reflect the wholeness you've already become. And that kind of love does not take you away from yourself. It leads you deeper into it. Because the universe does not send love as a reward for desperation. It sends love as a reflection of your readiness. And in that reflection, you will not only find someone else, you will find yourself. There's a moment in every deep connection where something inexplicable happens. You look at the other person and you don't just see them. You feel something familiar, something ancient, something that feels like recognition. Maybe it's in their voice, maybe it's in their pain, maybe it's in their silence. But whatever it is, it pulls something out of you that you didn't even know was still inside. And suddenly, you're not just falling in love. You're falling into something that feels much deeper. Carl Jung had a name for this phenomenon. He called it projection. And contrary to what most people think, projection is not illusion. It is revelation. It is your soul trying to show you what you've buried, what you've forgotten, what you've longed to reclaim. Projection is not just about seeing others incorrectly. It's about unconsciously casting your inner world onto the canvas of someone else's presence. You see their strength, and you feel safe, not because they are safe, but because your soul is calling you to remember your own inner strength. You see their chaos, and you feel anxious, not because they are your enemy, but because they reflect the chaos you've spent years avoiding. The people we're most drawn to are rarely random. They are mirrors, living, breathing symbols of something unacknowledged within ourselves. We don't fall in love with others as they are. We fall in love with who we become in their presence, or more truthfully, with who we remember ourselves to be. When Jung explored projection, he didn't see it as a mistake. He saw it as a map, a way to understand the hidden parts of the psyche. We project both our light and our shadow. We see brilliance in others that mirrors the brilliance we've disowned. We see flaws in others that we're unwilling to admit we also carry. And through that reflection, we're given a gift, the gift of awareness. But only if we're willing to stop blaming the other person and start looking within. Only if we stop asking why they made us feel something, and instead ask what that feeling is pointing to inside ourselves. Projection is not comfortable. It's confronting. It explains why certain people trigger us for reasons we can't explain. Why we feel a magnetic pull towards someone who doesn't logically make sense. Why we become obsessed with what someone thinks of us, even if we barely know them. It's not about them. It never was. It's about you. It's about your history, your unmet needs, your unresolved grief, your suppressed creativity, your forgotten joy, your silenced truth. And when someone steps into your life and lights up those dormant energies, it feels cosmic. Because it is. When you project your longing onto another person, it's not because they are your destiny. It's because your soul is trying to show you what you long to integrate. That's why projection feels so powerful, because it touches the part of you that is aching to be seen. It's the moment your unconscious starts to surface, disguised as romance, disguised as obsession, disguised as fate. But the deeper reality is not about union with another. It's about reunion with yourself. You may find yourself obsessing over someone who reminds you of the parent who withheld love, or someone who echoes the friend who betrayed you. You may feel inexplicably drawn to someone who mirrors your unhealed wounds or your unexplored potential. And in that dynamic, your mind will try to create a story about the connection, that they are special, that this must be meant to be. But if you listen closely, the universe isn't asking you to chase them. It's asking you to examine why you're reacting so strongly. What are they reflecting back that you haven't yet claimed? This doesn't mean the person is irrelevant. It doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It means the connection is multidimensional. And one of those dimensions is your own healing. That person becomes a catalyst, not by trying to be, but simply by being themselves. And your reaction to them tells you everything about your internal landscape. What makes you feel rejected tells you where you've abandoned yourself. What makes you feel safe tells you what you need to build within. What makes you feel euphoric tells you what you've denied yourself for too long. The beauty of projection is that it gives you a path forward. Once you recognize it, you can reclaim it. When you see that the love you projected onto another is actually the love you've been denying yourself, you become empowered. You stop chasing people and start cultivating the qualities within. If someone's attention made you feel worthy, it means you've outsourced your value. If someone's silence made you feel invisible, it means you've been waiting for external permission to exist. But when you bring those needs back home to yourself, the dynamic changes. You stop needing people to act a certain way to feel okay. You start becoming the source of your own stability. Jung taught that projection ends when consciousness begins. When you become aware of what you're projecting, you stop being controlled by it. You start relating to people as they are, not as extensions of your own wounds or dreams. You start seeing clearly, and from that clarity, you begin to love differently, more honestly, more freely, more deeply, because you're no longer loving to complete yourself. You're loving as a whole being. And that kind of love is not frantic. It's not anxious. It's not consuming. It's calm. It's spacious. It's awake. But before you can reach that kind of love, you have to move through the illusions. You have to let the projections reveal what they came to reveal. You have to sit with the discomfort of seeing yourself in another. You have to acknowledge the parts you've disowned, the rage, the tenderness, the brilliance, the fear. You have to look in the mirror, and instead of turning away, you say, yes, this too is me. And in that acceptance, something softens, something integrates, something comes home. Projection isn't the enemy. Denial is. The longer you deny that what you're seeing in someone else is also alive in you, the longer you'll chase people who only reflect your lack. But when you begin to embrace every part of you, even the parts that scare you, even the parts you've been told are unlovable, you begin to attract from a different place. Not from desperation, but from alignment. You no longer project your needs onto others because you've learned how to meet them. You no longer crave someone to see you because you've already seen yourself. So the next time you feel an intense pull towards someone, pause. Before you label it as destiny, ask yourself what part of me is waking up in their presence? What am I seeing in them that I haven't owned in myself? What is this connection trying to teach me about me? Because when you make that shift, everything changes. Relationships become less about attachment and more about awareness. You stop needing to possess someone and start learning from them. You stop fearing loss and start embracing growth. And that, at its core, is the true gift of projection, not illusion. Revelation. There is a quiet shift that happens within you the moment you stop searching for love to complete you and begin to recognize that real connection can only occur when two people are already whole. This shift is not sudden. It is subtle, almost invisible. You may not even notice it at first. It begins with fatigue, with the exhaustion of trying to prove your worth, of chasing after people who cannot see you, of giving pieces of yourself away, in the hope that someone will finally love you enough to make you feel complete. But love that is rooted in emotional need will always betray you. Not because others are cruel, but because your own soul will not allow you to stay dependent on something external for your inner sense of value. Most of us were never taught how to love without clinging, how to give without emptying, how to be vulnerable without losing ourselves. We were taught that love is something we earn through sacrifice, through pleasing, through becoming whatever someone else wants us to be. We confuse control with security, attention with love, desire with destiny. And so we go through life calling emotional need romance and mistaking temporary relief for real resonance. But Carl Jung taught us that what we seek outside ourselves is often a reflection of what we have not yet cultivated within. The people who trigger our deepest longing are rarely the ones we are meant to build a life with. They are the ones who mirror back to us the very gap between who we are and who we have the potential to become. Emotional need is loud. It rushes, it grabs, it begs to be filled. It comes from the younger parts of us that still believe love must be earned, that closeness must be chased, that safety depends on someone else staying. And because these parts were formed in fear, in abandonment, in early heartbreak, they will continue to seek validation through relationships that only reinforce their pain. You will keep meeting people who are unavailable. You will keep falling for intensity over intimacy. You will keep getting stuck in cycles of anxiety, miscommunication, and emotional imbalance until one day the pain becomes a teacher, the silence becomes a message, the loss becomes a mirror, and you begin to ask different questions. You stop asking why they didn't choose you and start asking why you abandoned yourself in their presence. You stop asking how to make someone stay and start wondering why you stayed long after your soul knew it was time to go. You stop measuring your value by how loved you feel and start reconnecting with the essence within you that needs no external validation. This is the beginning of soul resonance. It cannot be faked. It cannot be forced. It cannot be found while you are still living from a place of emotional lack. It only arrives when you've begun the sacred process of becoming whole within yourself. Soul resonance is different. It is not about filling a void. It is about meeting from fullness. It does not come to rescue. It comes to reflect. It does not demand that you change. It honors who you already are. When you encounter someone who resonates with your soul, there is a silence between you that feels safe, not empty. There is a presence that requires nothing, yet offers everything. There is no urgency, no proving, no performance, just truth, alignment, recognition. But to experience this kind of connection, you must be willing to stop romanticizing emotional turbulence. You must stop calling it passion when what you feel is nervous system dysregulation. You must stop confusing chaos for depth. Because real resonance is often quieter than you expect. It does not create butterflies that feel like panic. It creates calm, stability, expansion. It makes you feel more like yourself, not less. And if you're still addicted to the drama of emotional need, this kind of love might feel boring at first. But it's not. It's healing. Jung spoke often of individuation, the process by which we integrate the parts of ourselves we've rejected in order to become whole. Soul resonance can only occur between individuals who are on this path, who are doing their inner work, who are not looking for someone to fix them, but someone to grow with, who understand that love is not a fairy tale, but a spiritual practice, a daily commitment to meet each other with honesty, curiosity, and grace. When you stop seeking love to fill you, you begin to realize that the right person does not complete your sentence. They create space for you to write it. They do not interrupt your journey. They walk beside you, not in front of or behind. They do not require your silence. They celebrate your voice. And you, in turn, hold space for their full expression. Not because they are perfect, but because they are willing. Willing to see themselves, willing to grow, willing to unlearn everything they thought love was supposed to be, and begin again from presence. This kind of relationship does not erase your wounds. It brings them to the surface, not to hurt you, but to heal you. The difference is that now you are ready. You are no longer triggered into reaction. You are conscious enough to pause, to breathe, to choose a new response. You are no longer asking someone else to meet needs you haven't learned to meet yourself. You come with awareness. You come with discernment. You come with self-respect. Soul resonance is not about never fighting. It's about fighting in ways that build, how not break. It's about learning how to repair, how to communicate without collapsing, how to express without attacking. It's about choosing growth over comfort, truth over harmony, and alignment over attachment. It's not about having a perfect relationship. It's about being willing to grow a conscious one. You may not be able to experience this kind of love until you've outgrown the old versions of yourself that were addicted to being needed. Until you've learned how to hold space for your own emotions. until you've forgiven yourself for the years you spent chasing love in places that could never offer it, until you've grieved the fantasy, released the projections, and finally come home to yourself. But when you do, you will stop settling. You will stop clinging. You will stop losing yourself in the presence of others. And when someone comes along who meets you there, you will feel it. Not in a rush of dopamine, but in a deep exhale. You will feel the resonance not just in your heart, but in your body, in your nervous system, in the way your soul no longer feels the need to perform. You will feel at home, not because they are your home, but because you have built one inside yourself, and they simply fit within it. So if you are still healing, let that be your focus. If you are still aching, turn inward. If you are still searching, pause. Because the love you truly long for will never arrive while you are still trying to fix yourself through someone else. It will arrive when you realize you no longer need to be fixed. You simply needed to be found by you. And when that happens, when emotional need fades and soul resonance rises, you will understand. Love was never about being saved. It was about becoming. And the one who meets you there on that sacred path of becoming is not your answer. They are your mirror. We grow up believing that love is the destination, the answer, the missing piece that will finally make us whole. We are told stories of soulmates, of perfect halves, of one person who will complete everything we feel is lacking inside ourselves. We are taught to search, to wait, to long for the moment someone arrives to fix what has felt broken. But this idea is not only misleading, it is dangerous because it teaches us that we are incomplete, that we are somehow not enough until someone else enters the picture. It places the power of transformation outside of us, in the hands of another. But real love does not complete you. Real love awakens you. It doesn't arrive to patch your cracks or fill your emptiness. It arrives to illuminate what you've always carried and to remind you that you were never broken to begin with. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He wrote that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that is exactly what love is meant to do. Not to blind you with fantasy, but to show you the shadows you've ignored. To awaken in you the parts that have long been asleep. To shake the dust off the places you've neglected. And to call you back into full aliveness, not through comfort, but through presence. This is why true love often feels disruptive. Not because it breaks you, but because it reveals how much of yourself you've been denying. You may meet someone who doesn't fit your checklist, who doesn't arrive in the way you imagined, who doesn't rescue you in the way you thought you needed. But somehow, they stir something. They awaken a sense of truth, a pull, a mirror, and suddenly you find yourself feeling things you haven't felt in years. Longing, fear, hope, resistance. You feel seen, but also vulnerable. You feel understood, but also exposed. And deep down, you know that this connection is not here to make you feel safe. It's here to make you real. Love awakens your edges. It reflects the parts of you that are still hiding, still wounded, still waiting to be acknowledged. It doesn't just show you the beauty of who you are. It shows you the work that's left to do. It invites you into the kind of growth that doesn't happen in isolation. It demands that you rise, that you speak, that you feel, that you confront the ghosts you've been running from. It invites you into wholeness by making you face the ways you've been fragmenting yourself just to be loved. But here's the thing. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is waking up. Because the love that awakens you doesn't soothe your ego. It shakes it. It challenges the stories you've been telling yourself. It exposes the patterns you've been repeating. It brings to the surface the unresolved pain that has kept you cycling through the same relationships, the same disappointments, the same emotional hunger. And if you're willing to stay present, to not run, to not numb, to not sabotage, then that love becomes something sacred. It becomes your greatest teacher. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the individuation process. The journey of becoming your true self by integrating your unconscious into your conscious life. Love, in its highest form, is the catalyst for that process. It doesn't erase your wounds. It shines light on them. It doesn't make your fears disappear. It reveals them so they can be transformed. It doesn't silence your pain. It teaches you how to hold it with compassion instead of shame. And through that inner work, something extraordinary happens. You begin to awaken not just to the other person, but to yourself. You start to see the ways you've abandoned your own needs, the ways you've shaped yourself to fit into someone else's story, the ways you've confused attention for connection and control for security. And as you awaken, you begin to take your power back. You begin to realize that no one is coming to save you, not because you are unworthy of love, but because you were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to remember who you are, what you carry, and what you deserve. The person who awakens you may not stay, and that doesn't make the connection any less valuable. Sometimes the purpose of love is not to build a life together, but to light the fire that brings you home to yourself, to awaken your voice, your truth, your soul. Some people come into your life not to walk with you forever, but to point to the path you forgot you could take. They awaken your desire, not just for them, but for a different way of living, a different way of being, a different relationship with yourself. That is the real gift of awakened love. Not its permanence, but its impact. Not its consistency, but its clarity. It's not about being chosen. It's about choosing. Choosing to see yourself clearly. Choosing to stop performing. Choosing to stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to exist fully. When love awakens you, it leaves fingerprints on your soul. It changes how you see, how you feel, how you move through the world. And even if it ends, even if they walk away, the awakening remains. And that awakening, if you honor it, will lead you to a different kind of love, a quieter love, a deeper love, a love not born from need, but from knowing, a love not built on fantasy, but on truth, a love that does not ask you to shrink, to hide, to settle, or to betray yourself, a love that says, I see you, all of you, not just the light, but the dark, not just the joy, but the pain. And I do not need you to be perfect. I only need you to be real. So if you've experienced a love that shook you, that broke something open in you, that left you different than it found you, know this. It was this. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a waste. It wasn't just a chapter you should forget. It was an awakening, a message from your soul, a turning point in your journey. It came not to complete you. It came to wake you up. And now, the choice is yours. Will you go back to sleep, chasing comfort, chasing certainty, chasing the kind of love that keeps you small? Or will you stay awake? Will you honor what you've seen? Will you keep becoming, even if it's painful, even if it's lonely, even if it means letting go of everything that no longer fits the person you're becoming? Because love was never supposed to complete you. You were never missing a piece. You were always whole. But you forgot, and love came to remind you. Not just once, but again and again, through every connection, every heartbreak, every whisper in the silence. Love is not your destination. It is your awakening. If this message has stirred something deep within you, if you found your own story echoed in these words, then don't let the reflection end here. This is not just a channel. This is a space for awareness, healing, and the courage to look inward. Subscribe to Library Mindset and turn on notifications, not just to follow content, but to stay close to the truth that brought you here. Every week, we bring you reflections rooted in soul, psychology, and the quiet power of choosing yourself. If you're walking the path of growth, you don't have to walk it alone. Let's walk it together.